to the Layman Seminary. We're going to be looking at part 4 of how to find the exegetical method of a biblical passage. Still in the book of James, chapter 1, we're going to be using it for an example. Now, in the first video, part 1, we talked about writing it out seminarily. In the second video, we talked about refining it through paraphrasing, substitution words, inverting words, reducing words, those types of things like that. In part 3, we talked about breaking it down line upon line according to punctuation, making comments on the passage, and then synthesizing it. In part 4, we're going to be emphasizing it through what's called thought flow or phrasing. So I like to rhyme things to help me memorize things. So write it, refine it, line upon line it, and emphasize it. Kind of rhymes all together. So for the sake of time, I've already got my passage pasted in. This is James chapter 1, verses 5 through 8 of the NASB. So there is my passage. Now, I already also, like those cooking shows that you watch wherever they're making something and they don't have time to cook it all through the process, so they already have things to the side. That's what I'm doing here. So this next step is you break it down according to punctuation. All right. Now here's the phrasing, basic or thought flow. Basically what you're doing in this is you're just moving the words around to how you think that they're flowing. It's not diagramming. It does not have to be grammatically correct. It's just for your purposes, for your use, or maybe even to show somebody else. Okay, you have that. I'll explain in later on videos about keywords that you can use to help indent things over and know what's going on. But right now, I just want you to be free to do it however you feel led to do. It's your flow. Okay. Now, whereas before, whenever we were writing line upon line, we were writing out more than one word. Here, the goal is that we're kind of just writing one word or maybe two words that describe how the passage is functioning, or how part of that passage is functioning. So like right here we have, but if any of you lacks wisdom, so we have a contrast with the but, and then we have a if, so that's a condition. Let him ask of God, that's a command. Who, so this is a description of God, gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. So that's the result. But he must ask in faith without any doubt. Of course, that's a contrast. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea. That's a reason with the for, but it's also a description of what the doubter's like. And then the elaboration of that description is driven and tossed by the wind. For, so this is an explanation or the reason. For that man not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord. And then it describes him more. Being a double-minded man, unstable in all his description. So that's in all his ways, actually, what it says. Okay, so you could take that right there, copy that, and then delete everything except for the blue words, and you would have this: contrast, condition, command. You would have all those relationships involved there. Then you could go back and you could look at your passage and you could write something like this, and using these words to modify your exegetical idea so that we can understand the logic, the flow of things. So, for example, maybe something like this. In contrast to the Jewish Christian that doesn't shortchange a refinement process with the attitude, the way where one can shortchange a process is given. Because I talked about in the previous video about the refinement process, that we're to count it all joy, that brings about the maturity and endurance and all of that. But here, what can shortchange that process is given. When they find they're in the condition or situation of being at their wits' end, in other words, when they lack wisdom, the command is to ask God for that wisdom, because God is described as genuine and gracious. The result of asking God is wisdom will be given him. The condition of receiving the wisdom contrasts faith with doubt, that is described as surf that is wind tossed. The reason the condition of faith is given is because a doubter should not expect anything from God, because he's described as a double-minded and unstable all around. So that whenever you write your exegetical idea, it's going to be choppy like this, and you can simplify it down to one sentence, There's a lot of things you can do, but one of the things that I'm probably going to do right here is I'm going to simplify this. If I were making an outline of this, I would say contrasting condition. Then the next one is command. Then the next one is result, but since we got C's, I'm going to use the word consequence. And I'm not spelling that right. All right. Then we have a contrasting, a contrast again. And it's given a contrasting reason. Let's see. Perhaps we can break it down like that. So, in short, what this passage is doing, I know there are descriptions in the passage, but the descriptions are secondary to these main points. Because the condition or contrast is that when a person lacks wisdom, they need to ask of God. That's the command, to ask of God. And the consequence of that is that if they ask in faith, then God will answer them and they will hear that. And the reason that it must be according to faith is because a person that doubts is unstable in all their ways. So that's it. So actually right here is something that I'm going to be doing in the next video, is about, well, probably the next video is making outlines from this. So you can clearly see how this is very helpful to trace the flow of the passage, to make your exegetical idea more accurate, and also to develop an outline of your major points to summarize it. And you could go back and you could write out a simplified exegetical idea that's not as bulky as the first one, not as polished. I mean, that will be more polished. But of course, I did that orally just now, so I will close with that. So in short, hopefully you benefit from this process. Be sure to subscribe, share this video with others, and let us know what you think. God bless.